The Way of the Good Lion, Book 1, Out of the Woodland, Chapter 2, A New Old Friend. William left church a little dejected, as you remember, a little full of doubt, in fact, about the way that they conducted themselves. The using of church money to pay for rich lions, it just didn't sit right with him, and he started to question all of it. I should say that is a perfectly fine thing to do every now and again, to wonder, to question, but you always, where do you want to bring those questions and those wonderings to? The Lord God Almighty, and to search the Bible, thank you, Micah, for the truth. Well, you know that's what William was doing. He was reading the scrolls of the way. That's the letters and the books and the words left behind by the good lion himself and his followers, passed down through history like a family heirloom. So he was reading those things for the truth. And that's why, in fact, he felt a little bit unsettled about the whole thing. It was because he read that funds were supposed to be toward the poor and the needy. And so, William found himself that afternoon. It was sunny, it was wonderful. He found himself in the backwoods. Well, you know that the country he lives in is called the Woodland. It's a great wood, filled with all kinds of critters and creatures of great peace and different clearings and all sorts, villages, if you will. Well, he found himself in the backwood that shouldered his village, a deep, thick wood that tapered on into just endless trees, it seemed. There were tons of people who lived in there, tons of critters who lived in there, a little bit undomesticated, but still were quite lovely. But he himself stayed near the coast of that tree land, and he climbed a tree, and he sat on a thick branch, just looking out over the woodland, over the village, in fact, that was behind him. And he was whistling a familiar tune.
Father Abraham had many sons.
Then all of a sudden, as he's whistling that, he hears someone else call. And he starts looking around, thinking, oh, somebody else is whistling with me. And he looked down from his tree and saw, just at the foot of the tree, was a man, an elder in the church that he belonged to, and his son. Well, the man's name was Duncan Duckbill, and his son's name was Dustin. Dustin and Duncan Duckbill. You could probably guess they were ducks. Well, Duncan Duckbill was an elder at the church, and he was a dear good friend of Thomas Strong Badger, William's father. And they were whistling that tune together. It was Dustin, the little boy duck, who was whistling, and William saluted and greeted them. Hello there. And I didn't expect to see you, he calls from above the tree, and he lowered himself down, and Duncan, Mr. Duncan, Duckbill, the elder of the church, said, what brings you to the wood on this fine Sunday afternoon alone? Of course, it was perfectly fine and safe to be in the wood by yourself, but it wasn't typical to find somebody sitting up in a tree, much less a badger who wasn't hunting. And while William explained that he was a little on the troubled side of things and just needed to clear his head and think a little bit, and Duncan asked him what troubled him. And William didn't really want to share because he wasn't sure what to share or how to share what he was feeling. So he decided to softly say, I feel a little strange after this Sunday morning worship service. Duncan Duckbill jolted back. Strange? Like what? It was a splendid sermon that your father put forth to us, was it not? Oh, yes, it was, William said. But I don't think it was the sermon that was bothering me. I guess it was something that the lion said. You know, the lion that came in after the service? Yes, Lionel Lionson. I know him. He's a great, wonderful lion. Yeah, his name is Lionel Lionson, I decided just now. Pretty funny. Anyways, Lionel Lionson was the lion that came into William Strong Badger's church this Sunday morning. And Duncan Duckbill said that he was a wonderful lion. And William said, yes, but he said something interesting, didn't he? He said about the good lion, he said that you, referring to us, the followers of the way of the good lion, you believe he has come. And then he said, but I believe that he is coming. That is a strange difference, isn't it? And Duncan Duckbill straightened his feathers. He loves to talk about this matter of end times, if you will. Duncan Duckbill stood straight and let out a little quack, quack, quack. Well, my boy, the good lion is coming, isn't he? Haven't you read? He will come again, surely, and gather his own. William scratched his fur on his head. Yes, I've read that a few times. The apostles write of that. The good lion will come again. Yes.
Papa, we have footprints there.
Oh, wow, yeah. The good lion will come again, he says. Well, Duncan Duckbill said, the good lions will receive him as their own. But he is their own, is he not? William said. Well, yes, but they didn't receive him. They rejected him when he first came, and so they do not believe that the good lion came at all. They don't believe the good lion came at all? William asked. But he did come. History says so. Well, said Duncan, they know that a lion came, but they don't believe that he was the good lion, or they call the true lion. They don't believe that it was the true lion. But when he comes again, the good lion, the true lion, whatever you call him, he will receive us, catch us up into the air, and the lions will receive him and take him on as their rightful Lord and Savior. Well, that sounds interesting, doesn't it? If he came and they rejected him, what's to say they won't reject him again? Oh, Duncan said, they surely will. He will deliver them from great distress. Did he not deliver them from the great distress of their sins the first time around? Now, William, said Duncan Duckbill, you are questioning things that I think might be a little bit too beyond what you can comprehend right now. Sure, it's a complicated thing. When you have given as many years to the study of this topic as your father and I have, you will come to the same conclusion, that the good lion came, the lions rejected him, and thus his way was opened to the rest of the critters of the woodland. The rejection was wonderful for us because it meant that we could accept him as our own. But one day he will set us aside by bringing us up into the air and continue his true passion project, which is, in fact, the redemption of the lions. Oh, William sighed, I have heard all this before, haven't I? But I don't know, something doesn't sit right about it. It just doesn't seem to be New Testament-y. Does that make sense? Duncan Duckbill laughed. Well, it is the promises of the Old Testament, that is for sure. William decided that he wasn't going to continue asking about this question because, well, it didn't seem to be going anywhere. But then he tried to change the conversation, but then Duncan Duckbill spoke again, and he said, when he comes again, he will do exactly as the lions expected him to do in the first place, and then they'll follow him. And with that, William said, What? Well, that doesn't make any sense. If he came to save from sins, and they didn't expect that, so they rejected him, what is he coming to do again? To conquer their enemies, said Duncan Duckbill. But what about their sins? William said. What about their sins? Aren't we all sinful? Hasn't every single creature fallen short of the glory of the good lion? Well, yes, Duncan said. But you must understand that when he came to purge them of their sins, that is not what they were looking for, and so they rejected him. Well, isn't that their fault, William said, and not the good lions? Okay, fault is one word that we should not use here. This is the redemptive story, the redemptive plan. Then William said, I just think it's not good to give church silver, the silver of those who follow the good lion, to give it to rich lions. I think we should be giving this our alms and our tithes to the poor and the displaced. And what about the other critters? Who helps them if the church of the good lion sends our excess silver to only lions? It just doesn't add up. Aren't we called to take care of these ones? And then Dustin Duckbill quacked up, the little boy duck. And he said, you're one to be complaining about misused money. Your whole life was built and bred by church silver. Ha! Don't you know? Quack, quack, quack. Your father is paid by the church, which means every drop of food you eat is paid for by followers of the good lion. So you shouldn't complain about where the silver goes. You're complaining that you had to give a tithe of silver coins to a lion? Ha! Your whole life has been fed by a silver spoon, crafted and paid for by the church. My pa doesn't get paid to be an elder. Yours does. So you shouldn't talk. And with that, Dustin Quackbill had said everything that he needed to say in order for William to really be turned over and think to himself, oh boy, didn't he have a point? William's whole livelihood, his whole everything was based on the fact that his father was the pastor, a paid pastor receiving silver from the congregants. Wait a second, does that mean William was no better than the lion? He was rich, he was full, his cupboards were full with fat foods and whatnot. Maybe William was the problem, or at least part of it. Maybe everything was the problem. And with that, William said, good day, Mr. Duncan Duckbill and Mr. Dustin Duckbill. I do need to be alone in my thoughts to think about this further. And with that, Duncan and Dustin went off in, I want to say a huff, but I don't think ducks huff. So with that, Duncan and Dustin went off with a quack and a flutter of their wings and continued on their Sunday stroll through the sunny forest behind their little village in the woodland. Well, the title of this chapter is called New Old Friend, isn't it? And so, with that, as William is frustratingly making his way through the forest, kicking up dust, thinking about his conversation and how disturbing it all was, now he just didn't seem to agree or fit in with anything that was said there. He saw an old friend. You guys guess who the old friend is?
The lion?
The lion boy, who had incited him to throw a stone at Alfred Hampson's blacksmith shop and break the window and get him the job. Anyways, that lion. Why did he do that? Well, because he was a troublemaker at the time. His name was Luke Lionsmane. That's right, a little lion named Luke Lionsmane. Well, as William was coming back, yes. David was in the Bible, yes. So as William was coming back into the village, he saw Luke Lionsmane lurking about with some kind of stolen scroll, he thought. What is that, Luke Lions?
A map.
Yeah.
And David in this mountain.
Yeah, so he's thinking, what is that Luke Lionsmane up to? And then he saw him. Luke saw William staring at him and waves and ran over to him and said, "Hi, William Strongbadger. I haven't seen you since the turn of the summer. How have you been?" And William said, "I have been all right. I have been working all summer at Alfred Hampson's blacksmith shop to pay off the window that we broke." Just then, Luke looked down. He was young, but not young enough to be without a growing mane. He touched it a little bit, the short fur, and he looked down at his paws, his feet, his paws, whatever. And he said, "I'm sorry, William. That whole thing was so wrong of me. I actually am very glad to have found you so that I can tell you how sorry I am. Not just that I had you do this terrible thing, but that I ran from it, and that I never found you after." "Oh," William said, I forgive you." After all, forgiveness was a part of his religion, wasn't it? And so then Luke Lionsmane said, "And I want to show you this." And he showed him the stolen scroll that he had, but it wasn't a stolen scroll. It was Luke Lionsmane's own handwriting, and he had written down the an entire letter from the old Apostle Paul from the Bible, and he was working on memorizing it. I am working on memorizing the one that he wrote to the church in the city of Galatia. It's a wonderful book, and it's changed my life. "Change your life?" said William Strong Badger. "Do you mean to say that you're following the good lion?" Luke Lionsmane smiled. "Yes, I am following the good lion. I am on the way, and I'm so thankful that he has forgiven me, and that you can forgive me as well. It is wonderful being able to read these letters and find out the truth of the gospel." Well, with that, William just hugged Luke Lionsmane tightly. "Oh, Luke, this is amazing to hear. I'm so happy to hear this. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I saw you." And then William had the idea to ask him a question about the conversation he had with Dustin and Duncan. He said, "Well, it's interesting that I should run into you just now. I just had a very quarrelsome conversation with two ducks, an elder at my church and his son. Well, they were telling me all about how the lions rejected the good lion, and therefore the good lion will come back and do as they wished him to do, and then they'll accept him." Luke Lionsmane gasped, even roared a little. "Reject him? No! The lions didn't reject the good lion when he came. Oh, they crowned him as king. I mean, all of the critters who followed him did. I'm sure some rejected him, that's for sure, like the Pharisees and the lawyers, but not the people as a whole. All of the true lions turned to follow the good lion. Oh, don't you know, the Apostle Paul, Peter, John, Philip, every single one of them were lions." William's eyes went wide. "What? That's right. They were all lions. Every single one of the church fathers were lions. So the lions didn't reject their Savior. They accepted him. With open arms, they crowned him king. That's the truth of it. The way of the good lion is indeed the true faith of the lions. It fulfills all of the good lion's promises. And then the way was open to the rest of the critters." William's heart was beating. This is what he wanted to hear. This is what he's read in the way book of the good lion. He understood all of this from beforehand, and now he was hearing it from Luke Lionsmane, a lion himself. The truth was coming from the mouth of a lion. "Why?" Luke Lionsmane said. He was so excited now. He was holding William's shoulders like this, and he said, "Why? Why did the way open up to all the rest of the critters after the lions accepted him?" Well, the good lion himself said that the lions, all of the true lions that would follow him, the lions weren't enough. He also wanted worship and praise and fellowship with every single creature everywhere, that the knowledge of him might cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. Wow. This is incredible, William said. I can't explain to you how much joy is being filled in my heart. But what about the lions who don't believe in him today? They come, they say they're lions. They say they're lions. What about them? They're not true lions, Luke Lionsmane said. They may look like it. They may act like it, but in the end, Luke Lyons may look down. It almost seemed like he was crying, as if he was speaking about family. In the end, they'll die just like every other creature. It's impossible to tell a tiger and a lion apart once the fur is gone. William remembered that phrase for quite some time thereafter. It's impossible to tell a tiger and a lion apart once the fur is gone. And then William Strong Badger continued to talk to Luke a little bit, to catch up about their summer, and they walked together. And he said, "Oh, would you come home? Would you come home with me for the Sunday supper?" And Luke looked a little sheepishly. "Oh, I don't know if I should. It's, well, maybe I could, just to say sorry to your mother and father for all the trouble I put you through." And so that's what they did. They went home, and Luke Lyons Mane apologized to the Strong Badgers for his previous bad influence on William. But it did indeed do Thomas Strong Badger a great deal of gladness to see his son William befriending a lion. But William was interested to hear how the conversation would go. Yeah. Oh, that's Peyton's. He was interested to hear how the conversation would go between Luke Lyons Mane and his father, because he knew that they didn't see eye to eye on these things, or at least it felt that way. It felt like everybody else in the village or in the church was believing in the doctrine that Duncan Duckbill believed in, and yet the truth that Luke Lyons Mane spoke seemed to be a rarity. And so William wasn't sure how that conversation would go. And thankfully, it didn't necessarily get into that too much. Thomas Strong Badger was delighted to hear that Luke had turned his life over to the way of the good lion and had simply said that was going to happen for every single lion ever. And Luke smiled and said, "I truly hope you are correct, because that would be wonderful." And of course that's the hope. That's the hope of everyone. And with that, William said goodbye to Luke as he went home, and he sat down with his father. And his father said, "It's good to see you and Luke together. But say, Duncan Duckbill came by earlier. He told me about a conversation that you had with him in the forest, and words that you said toward his son Dustin, and how you were bothered to pay the lions your silver and whatnot. I do not like that you are having these conversations with my elders. You should be coming to me with these concerns." "Yes, Father," said William. "I know. I am sorry. It came upon me suddenly. I didn't set out to talk to him. We just did." "It's okay, son. But next time you bring your doubts to me. Doubting is a perfectly fine thing to do. But I want to talk to them with you first. I would love that honor." "Okay, Father." "Can I tell you what I was worried about?" "Well, Duncan did tell me, and that's why I say it's such a great joy to see you hanging out with the lion. I was worried that you were getting a little anti-lionetic. I don't know how you would say that, but I was worried that you were beginning to hate the lions." "No, not hate them. I love the good lion. I love him. But I just think, well, I don't think we should pay the lions our silver. Especially when we have critters going hungry right in our backyard." "What do you mean, William?" Thomas said. "Well, just this week, you know the frogs. Well, I used a silver coin to feed them, and I was planning to use the other two for that as well, but then the lion took it. The lion, a rich lion. Well, sure, a rich lion took it, but he would use it for the poor lions. But what about our people?" William said. "The rest of us, the rest of the critters, who's looking out for them?" Who's always looking out for them. Isn't that the job of the church? William said. Just then, Thomas Strong Badger smiled and put his hand on his son's shoulder. He wasn't against this. He said, "You may be right, son. The church does have a responsibility to our neighbors. We also have a responsibility to pay for the peace of the lions, you know this, and to give tribute to them. But I don't think it would hurt to welcome the poor into our congregation again. Oh, we've done that many times before, but it's hard to find poor these days." "Well, it might not be hard to find if we open our eyes a bit more," William said. Thomas laughed. "Tell you what, you invite your frog friends to Sunday service, and I will have everybody else, if they find anybody who is for want and lacking food, they will also invite them to the Sunday service. And I will have every single one of the members cook a little extra and bring a little extra food. And then we can all feast, and everything left over we will distribute to our guests, those who are less fortunate. That way, we still have the ability to give our silver to the lions, or we can use copper and gold and silver to buy extra food, and that way we are fulfilling the duties that we have been given as a church. And as we see any needy widows or orphans, we will provide for them as a church." And William said, "Oh, Father, that sure does sound a lot more like the Good Lions Church to me."